Everyone wants to be remembered. Everyone wants this to have meant something. That's why we started this show. It's a basic human compulsion to want our story told. That's true today. It was true 100 years ago. They could never have known it, but it was the start of something. Well, in some ways, it was actually the end of something. The end of an American innocence. The end of an American ignorance about the world outside our borders. 1917 was the end of the idea that we were alone and left alone in the world. The end of our time as a country adrift, unmoored from the world around us. No, they could not have known what would have happened over the next 100 years. That group of farmers, blacksmiths, and tradesmen who traveled to Camp Gordon in the brutally hot summer of 1917 could never have known that they were about to participate in a war that would change the world and redefine the nation. There have been so many since. So many volunteers, draftees, so many men, young and old, then women. There were so many wars. When I think about the trajectory of 100 years, I think about all that has changed and how that change has manifested in the 82nd Airborne Division. From the Triple Nickel, our first black paratroopers, came the full integration of the 82nd Airborne Division. We introduced female paratroopers in the 1970s, and today we have female infantry company commanders. In 1943, we had a dream of a force of parachute infantry. Today we have the Advanced Airborne School and the Airborne Standard Operating Procedures. And then I think about all that has changed in the United States. 100 years. We started this division under Woodrow Wilson, and we've had 17 presidents since. One of them was assassinated. One of them was impeached. One of them resigned. Despite all of that, the AA patch endures. The 82nd Airborne Division is an American institution. So it shall be for the next 100 years. What story will they tell about us in 2117?
That was Joe Buccino with a piece he wrote called The Next 100 Years, and this is the All-American Legacy Podcast.
This is the 82nd Airborne Division, fearless among fighting units.
From Fort Bragg, home of the airborne and the center of the military universe, this is the All-American Legacy Podcast. An inside look at the 100-year history of the 82nd.
They are all American all the way.
So this is it. This is the night before All-American Week 100. And this is Joe Buccino, the host of the All-American Legacy Podcast. I am in my house getting ready for tomorrow. It is, in many ways, the calm before the storm. I've been preparing this really for a year. And, a lot of emotions right now. And, I just sometimes lately... Today, just think about time and the way that time passes, not just in my own life, but in all of our lives. And sometimes it speeds up, sometimes it goes slowly. But time is kind of the thread, I think, that's kind of be the theme, I think, hopefully throughout this week. All the things that are chronicled throughout the division's history, and this is going to be the greatest celebration of all that. So it's a big week. Going to get some rest, and probably won't get too much rest this week. So this week we're going to highlight and chronicle kind of all the sounds and the biggest things, and we're going to talk to as many people as we can. We're kind of, in terms of this show that you're listening to right now, this episode, we're kind of making it up as we go. We'll make it up as we go, and hopefully it'll be a good show. Talk soon. All right. So, okay, how do I turn this thing on?
Oh, you have it right, sir.
Is it? I got it?
Yeah, it's on. We're rolling. We're good.
We're rolling. Okay, so what do? I just hold this?
You just hold it, press record, we're good to go.
All right, so I'm going to go. Where are you going to be?
I'm going to be at the turnaround point.
Okay. All right, man. We'll give it a shot. We'll see what we got, man. Okay. Right. Good luck. See you.
I should explain. That voice is James Walker. He is new to the staff here at the All-American Legacy Podcast, and he's helping me put together this episode.
All right, we're getting closer to the run. This is exciting. You can feel it you can just feel the energy. Everybody's excited. It's got to be about 14,000, 15,000 people out here now. The rock music is blaring. I just saw All-American 6, and here's All-American 9.
This is really exciting. This is going to be cool. Hey, so we're here with Scott DeFries. You're a All-American Paratrooper for life, a veteran, a supporter of the division. What's it like being out here right now? This morning, we're getting ready for the run.
Nothing better than being surrounded by a bunch of highly motivated 82nd Airborne Division All-Americans.
And it's like, this is something I feel like I'm always going to remember.
Oh, most definitely. This is long after you retire, and as you go and grow older, you never forget these memories of serving in America's Guard of Honor.
Yeah. All right, you only get one centennial. Let's go celebrate it, man.
Airborne, all the way.
All the way. You're going to hear some pretty rough winds here. There was a significant downpour and then pretty heavy winds. I survived all of it. I braved all of it to get this podcast done. At one point, I thought I broke the recorder because I tripped and fell. But despite the rain, despite the winds, we got the podcast done. Okay, I'm running over here to see Colonel Toby Magsig, the commander of the 1st Brigade of the 82nd. He's deploying about half of his brigade to Afghanistan in a month and maybe the rest of the half shortly thereafter. Okay. You've got about a month until you deploy the brigade to Afghanistan. What are your feelings on that?
So for the Devil Brigade getting ready to deploy, this is a special time. It's a time to regroup as a family and to forge the bonds that's going to carry us through the next deployment.
So what are you looking forward to this week, sir?
Well, really, it's about honoring those before us. It's about honoring the commitment, the service, the legacy of this great division, 100 years of service to the nation, and then, of course, it's the athletic competitions.
And so in our last question here, in our 100th year, you're still sort of at the tip of the spear. Falcon Brigade in Iraq and just getting after it in Mosul and hearing all those reports, and then now you guys going to Afghanistan, and who knows what's going to happen there. Potential of maybe some changes there, expanding the mission there. What do you think about that? In our 100th year, we're still sort of at the knife's edge of readiness.
I think that's what the nation expects us to do. Obviously we've got the Devil Recon 373 Cav already forward, leading the way, just as good scouts do for the brigade, and the rest of us will follow in and around southern Afghanistan and eastern Afghanistan, and we'll do what our nation expects us to do. We'll come in as disciplined paratroopers. We'll partner with our Afghan troopers, and we will help develop capacity and connect the people to their government.
We'll see you at the Paratrooper breakfast.
All right, thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thanks. All right, appreciate it. Okay, so we're done with the run, and now we're headed to the next event, the Paratrooper breakfast. This is one of the marquee events for All-American Week. The Paratrooper breakfast is a great spread in one of our dining facilities. We'll have hundreds of alumni there. We'll have a performance by the All-American Chorus and a guest speaker, Command Sergeant Major Thomas Capel. He was the senior enlisted advisor in the 82nd from 2006 to 2010, and he retired a few years back. Okay, let's head over to the Paratrooper breakfast.
Sound off equipment check. Okay. Follow page, Master. 1 minute. Get ready. Go. Here we go. All the way. Gotta be rough and tough. Airborne.
The thing I want to do is be a paratrooper in this great division. The only thing I want to do is serve next to men and women like you. And I'm so thankful that we had men and women like you, the guys and girls today that's in harm's way, that continue to put on their uniform, tighten up that pistol belt, put on that protective vest, pick up that weapon, and go find the enemy and bring them to justice.
Okay, so we're heading outside from the Paratrooper breakfast. We're going to talk to Al Rivera. I know him pretty well. He was a sergeant here in the 1960s, a specialist and a sergeant. He deployed to the Dominican Republic for Operation Power Pack in 1965. He's featured in a later episode of this podcast, actually, on that subject. And he's got an interesting story. He is a Cuban exile. He had to flee Cuba in the late 1950s to escape the Castro regime, made his way to the United States, joined the Army, and then joined the 82nd Airborne Division, and now he's an All-American Paratrooper for life. So let's talk to him.
It's great to be back here. This is my third time coming to Fort Bragg, 3 years in a row. And it's just wonderful to be here with all the active military men and women of the 82nd and to pay tribute to all the members of the 82nd, present and past.
So we had you on the show. It hasn't run yet. We've talked to you many times. You and I have spoken many times for about, I think, like 8 or 9 months now. And so you were in the 505th.
I was in the when I first came was in the 504, and then the division reorganized, and I ended up in the 325.
325, and you deployed to the Dominican Republic in 1965. Which with the 325?
That's correct. 2nd Brigade 325, and deployed to the Dominican Republic in early May 1965.
And what rank were you at the time?
I was a specialist force at the time, as before.
So you come back, you're kind of well known to the community and well known to the association, and you do a lot of these remarks. How do you reflect back on 100 years of century of service for the 82nd?
First of all, very proud to have served with the 82nd. Number two, that I was part of the 82nd. The 3 years that I spent here, I learned so much that shaped my life in America.
Yeah, because you're a Cuban exile, aren't you?
I am from Cuba, exile. Yes, I left Cuba in November 1960, and I came to America in December 1961. And as soon as I decided that I wanted to join the Army, I volunteered for 3 years. I wanted to join the 82nd.
When I think about your story, I think about the original All-Americans in 1917. Came from all over the country. 20% of them were immigrants. Many of them did not speak English. They couldn't really understand each other. A lot of them couldn't really understand each other because different accents. This had never been done before. And I think your story represents that. Your story represents the idea of the All-American. Is that really something that you hold to be true?
Absolutely. I wanted to join the U.S. Army to pay back to America for letting me come to America. Number two, I wanted to join the 82nd because it was a division in the Army that had one of the greatest reputations, the teamwork, the accomplishments. So I wanted to be part of the 82nd, and I wanted to get to know America by being friends with all my buddies in the 82nd Airborne.
You know, when you look at the formation today, we look at the run today, you had America, the full swath of America, the broad sweep, every ethnicity, different. You know, obviously we've got all genders. We've got females in the infantry now. We've got different access, different part of the country, different experiences. It really is representative of the all America.
That's correct. That's correct. It was this morning when I was having breakfast here, I was speaking Spanish with some of the troopers here, and I met some of the members from the Army of Chile, and they were here, and also some of the other troopers that were having breakfast with us this morning. So it was being together with America and all the members of the 82nd all over again.
All right. Day one of All-American Week 100 is over. The first day has culminated. We're back here in the division headquarters, and I guess we're going to stay here tonight. But, it's been an exhausting day, but, paratrooper breakfast and just seeing all the different veterans and greeting everybody that came in here for the run and all the different paratroopers from all the different generations. It really just brings to mind, at least to my mind, that, the broad sweep of American history over the past 100 years really is manifest in this division. You see it all here and just walking around and talking to people, Multiculturalism, the rise of industry, the growth of the United States as a superpower after World War I, integration, desegregation, the rise of technology, and you see every aspect of American life over the past 100 years here in All-American Week, and it's really a reflection of the country, It's a reflection of who we are as a country and where we've been, and I guess over the next couple of days we're going to see where we're going to go. All right, that's it for day one.
Hello, sir. I'm James Walker, and the host of the All-American Legacy podcast, Joe Buccino, suggested that I talk to you and pick your brain about the history of the 82nd Airborne Division. If you could, tell me a little bit about your background and what it is you do.
Well, I'm Ken Clark. I run the Pritzker Military Museum and Library in downtown Chicago, and we've been working with the 82nd Airborne Division to record some of the key leaders and key people that were willing to talk about their experience in the 82nd in participation with the 82nd Airborne Division for the centennial.
So with the 82nd Airborne Division existing now for 100 years, what is it that's so significant about this All-American Week?
Well, the 82nd is one of many divisions that had their formation in World War I. The way that the Americans fought World War I was very different from the way that it fought previous wars, say the Civil War, the Spanish-American War. The days of raising your regiment and sending it off to Washington were over, and Pershing really organized the Army in a way that still influences us in the way that we fight today. A lot of people say, hey, our legacy goes back to World War II, and a lot of people think about the 82nd Airborne Division as heavily involved with World War II, and they're right. But the 82nd Airborne Division's legacy goes back to World War I and doughboys over there in France. And if you don't take into account the fact that World War I really established the world's borders and the world's flashpoints now, today in the 21st century, and everything that happened during World War I, then I think you are shortcutting a major part of our history and a major part of world history. So to understand the 82nd Airborne Division's history is to understand the history of the Army, and that's also to understand the history of our nation and also the conflicts and struggles that we're facing today with, say, ISIS, for example. The leader of ISIS declared all the World War I borders that were established as null and void, and he's setting up his own, or trying to set up his own caliphate over there in the Middle East. That's a direct result of World War I. The 82nd was there to fight.
So you enlightened me. Hey, I appreciate your time.
Thanks for...
Thank you.
Okay, so it's day 2, and we're getting ready to go to the prayer breakfast. It's one of the bigger events for All-American Week 100. The division chaplain, Colonel Randy Griffin, is shepherding this. He puts this together. He's here now. Sir, what is the prayer breakfast and why is it important?
Well, I think especially this year as we're focusing on our 100-year anniversary, it's important that we're taking time to look back at our past and how God has truly blessed this division over these 100 years. He has allowed a lot of success to be seen through the efforts of this division, and as we focus on that, then we should be in the right frame of mind to look to the future with that same dependence upon God.
And one of the things we're talking about on this show is the next 100 years, not just honoring our centennial, but looking at the 82nd Airborne Division position for the next 100 years. So that really seems appropriate. And there is a guest speaker today. I believe he was a former division chaplain just like yourself. Who's the guest speaker?
Yeah, our guest speaker is Chaplain Colonel Retired Will Leger. He was a former All-American Division chaplain for 3 years, actually, from 2005 to 2008. Did a 15-month deployment with the division and just loves paratroopers and loves the 82nd Airborne Division.
Thanks for your time. Look forward to it.
Past performance is the best predictor of future success. And as we look back on 100 years of the 82nd Airborne Division and 75 years of the Airborne, this is a useful operating principle. One which our nation needs, one which our Army needs, and one of which we should be mindful. Because of the 82nd's glorious history and history of success and history of effectiveness, and because the 82nd remains a viable threat and strikes fear into our enemies, we can rightly posit and we can rightly predict that the 82nd has an important, impactful future.
Okay, so Colonel Riffey, you're a big part of the 82nd Airborne Division. And in many ways, you are, I would say, you're an All-American legend. And there's a very specific reason. You have a very specific contribution. Why don't you explain what that is, sir?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I spent 30 years in the Army. And the time I had with 82nd Airborne Division was the most pleasurable, the most interesting, most challenging. And my fondest memories of the 30 years were the years I spent with 82nd Airborne Division, 1958 and the 60s.
And so you served in World War II in but not with the 82nd, and in the Pacific Theater?
Yes, I was in the Pacific with the 27th Infantry Division. I was on 3 different islands. The last one was Okinawa, where I was wounded, not too bad, fortunately. And then after that, of course, we went to Japan on the 50th of September 1945 to participate in the demilitarization of that country.
And so you brought the term, the slogan, Airborne all the way to the 82nd Airborne Division in 1958. So how did that come about, and how did you introduce that to the 82nd?
Well, I was the S3 of the 2nd Airborne Battle Group 503rd, and the battle group, by the way, had 5 rifle companies, and I had a couple of captains as the assistant S3, so I could spend most of my time with the companies, and we had a mortar company, so I'd spend practically half the time with the companies and talking to the sergeants and the NCOs and the officers to see what kind of training they wanted, because the division would tell you, you will do this, and then the battle groups could do the rest. So
Colonel Riffey references the battle group that he served in. This was the time after World War II when the division was organized into 5 battle groups. They came out of the regimental system into the battle group configuration, and that lasted until about 1960. So I just wanted to explain that.
After every week on a Saturday, I'd sit down and write up my training notes, and they would be published on a Monday. And in one of those training notes, I said, when an officer of the battle group meets one of our troopers, the officer will sound out, airborne, and the trooper will respond, all the way, sir. So that was in the training notes, and it was picked up very rapidly in the 2503. And of course, I was surprised over the years as how it spread not only in the battle group, but the division, and according to General Seitz, who wrote me a letter about it several years ago, it sort of spread throughout the airborne units today. So it's a thing I'm attached to, and I'm very proud of it. But I knew nothing about it until 2014 when I was called down here to the division, and they gave me a certificate of recognition, which I think a copy is over here at the museum today, that for coining the phrase "airborne all the way."
And we have a copy of that certificate and all the documents that were submitted. And so it's interesting that you introduce this phrase, it catches like wildfire, the whole division uses it, and then you don't really think about it ever again, it sounds like. And then it goes, decades go by, the entire division owns this phrase. And then in 2014, some folks that you knew from the time said, we have to get this guy some recognition, let's get the history of this straight and on the record, and then what happened?
Well, then one of my S3s, when I was the S3 of the 503rd, 2503rd, was Captain Livingston. Then, of course, I hadn't seen him. In 1960, he went to Okinawa. In 1960, I went to the Army War College. So in January of 2014, he wrote to General Nicholson. He said, I think it's about time we recognize Jim Riffey for calling, well, he didn't use the word coining the phrase, for saying the words airborne all the way. And I hadn't seen him since 1960. And he sent me a copy of the letter that he wrote to General Nicholson. And I had some letters from General Seitz that in my files. And so I thought, well, they may be also helpful to support his claim that I did this. So I either gave the letters to we call him Hoot, or I sent them directly to General Nicholson. I'm not quite sure. But then after that, I got a call from a Lieutenant Colonel Risden, and he said he was the Deputy Chief of Staff of the 82nd Airborne Division, and he said, you're going to be getting some stuff in the mail. Well, the first thing I got was that T-shirt you saw me wearing yesterday, and they also sent me a cap. And they said, we know you live a long ways around, because we're going to send you something else to surprise you. And so a few days later, I actually got their certificate. And then I got a call, said, could you come down for Airborne Week, May of 2014? And I said yes. So we came down, and he was our host and brought us over here, by the way. So it was something I never thought about. And it hadn't been for Colonel Livingston bringing it up, it wouldn't be known today, because he's the only one that knew about it, because when I put out the training notes, he's the assistant. He was my assistant.
You know, one of the things to that point, sir, one of the things I found, I've gone 20 years without ever serving the division, and last year, for the first time, I was assigned here. And so I always assumed this division was so steeped in tradition, in history, in these symbols and the legacy, that this was sort of a construct that couldn't change. And then I got here, and we're on the knife's edge, cutting edge technology, new processes, new ways of thinking, new ways of fighting, new ways of organizing for fight. It's just amazing for me to see.
Well, I think one testament to how the people feel about the 82nd Airborne Division is this week and the All-American Week. And we have, several hundred former members of the 82nd Airborne Division. We come from all over the United States to be here and be part of the 82nd Airborne Division just for a few days. And it's something we're proud of. And I'll be 96 years old in 6 weeks, and I hope next year at 97 I'll be here also, because it's an uplifting experience for me. I think it really, this may sound strange, but I think being here adds to my life. I think I feel more like I want to live some more.
Well, we want you to live some more, sir, and we just thank you for everything you've done for the 82nd, and thank you for being here this week.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's been an honor to be here, and thanks for enjoying talking with you.
All right, sir.
Colonel Riffey here references Colonel Seitz. Colonel Seitz was Riffey's battle group commander. He later would go on to command the 82nd Airborne Division.
Okay, so we're here in the Hall of Heroes with the reenactors from World War I and World War II, the displays. And, sir, can I get your name?
Yes, my name's Christopher Ruff. I'm curator for the U.S. Army Reserve Command.
And so you're here, you're dressed in the World War I doughboy uniform, and you've got a display here of the World War I doughboy equipment. How did you get involved and interested in this?
Well, I've been fascinated with U.S. military history since I was a very young child. Like George Washington was a boyhood hero. We visited all these battlefields all up and down the East Coast from the Civil War and the Revolution. And I had a lot of family members that participated or witnessed a lot of these pivotal moments of U.S. military history, so it's in my genetic code.
So there's a lot of people here. We've got a good crowd here, people coming in and out, and we're giving displays. So just try to depict sort of visually what do we have laid out here. It looks like we've got a helmet, some load-bearing equipment, canteens.
That's right. So here upon the tabletop is the U.S. Haversack model of 1910. And in addition to that, we have some rank insignia. We have an example of an 82nd Infantry Division shoulder patch. We have a pair of identity discs, original. And we have some of the containers that your rations would be stored in, model 1917 helmet. And then we have what they call a small box respirator or a gas mask.
So why is it important that we recognize World War I and the division's participation in World War I?
Well, specifically, a lot of these units still exist to this day. And in this country, we don't have a regimental system like some European nations do, particularly England, but we do have a legacy that goes all the way back to 1917 and before in some cases.
And so you were mentioning to one of the guests here that all of sort of our understanding of the world and a lot of the conflicts and issues in the world today date back to World War I.
Yes, that's very true. So a lot of the conflict and strife that was evident during and in the immediate aftermath of World War I, some of that is still very much in evidence today. I was talking about the unrest in the Middle East has its origins in the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire. And so this is something that is still very much going on.
Yeah, and so we've got the AA patch here, the original AA patch from 1917. 100 years later, we still wear that AA patch and it still means something to the world.
Yes, very much so. A lot of these original shoulder patches, you have to keep in mind that there were no divisional distinctions, and these shoulder patches were created towards the end and in the immediate aftermath of World War I. And so the 82nd patch in particular bears the AA because that was the unit's nickname at the time, the All-American Division, and I understand that it had members from all 48 states represented.
Well, absolutely did, and today we represent all the best qualities of the country. And thanks for doing this and keeping this honor going, sir. Thanks. All right, day 2 is over. Been an exhausting day. The rain has been steady throughout. It's been, can't control the weather, but it's been in some ways a little disappointing. But it's affected a lot of the events, but we're just hoping for good weather tomorrow. Forecasts are not good, but we're hoping that we can do the memorial outside, and that's really the biggest, most somber event that we have, the biggest event that we have outside of the Airborne Review. So it's been a long day, long night. It'll be another long one tomorrow, but we're halfway through with All-American Week, but it's still a lot of fun and very exciting. Okay. See you tomorrow.
So, hey, sir. I'm Staff Sergeant James Walker. I was sent by Colonel Bacino, Joe Bacino, the one who voices the podcast, and he was telling me that you have some experience with the 82nd Airborne Division as a former commander of the division.
Correct.
So, who are you? Tell us about yourself.
I first joined the division in 1953 in the 2nd 325, and I served there in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and the 80s, and commanded at every level except I commanded a battalion in Vietnam. I commanded a 3rd Brigade, and then I commanded the division. I was the Chief of Staff in ADC support and ADC operations as well.
Awesome. So when you commanded the division, some of the traditions we have in place today were new. Some had not yet started. The Maroon Beret was relatively new in our history by the time you took command. Right now, we can't think of a time where we did not wear it. All-American Week was, or is, one of our most well-known traditions, which had not started by the time you took command either. What are your thoughts on the importance of these symbols and traditions to our readiness, and what traditions did you initiate that still remain in place today?
First and foremost, those traditions are very important, and the Airborne does about as well as anybody in maintaining and upholding those traditions. As to the beret was approved, the Maroon Beret was approved for the Airborne in the fall of 1973, right after I took over command of the 3rd Brigade. Unfortunately, this developed a proliferation of berets all over the place. The 101st went to blue berets, all the cavalry people wearing black berets, which is really a Ranger beret. And so in 1978, Bernie Rogers, who was Chief of Staff, took away all the berets except the Ranger's black beret. When Scheimeyer took over as Chief of Staff, he reinstated the Maroon Beret for the Airborne, so we got them back in the fall of 79, 1980, and of course we've maintained it ever since. It's a great tradition, and there are a host of other traditions like that. You asked another question there about any traditions that I established. I can't think. One thing I did that I thought would be a tradition, but didn't become that. In those days, the PT test was push-up, sit-ups, and a 2-mile run. And so I asked companies, as they were doing their annual PT test, to invite me to join them. And anybody could beat me in push-up, sit-ups for the 2-mile run could get a 3-day pass and my coin. And I started doing that, and I'd give out any place from 5-10 coins as a rule. And then one day, it was amazing. The 2nd of the 05 was going to the Sinai. And the company commander called me, and I went down. We did the test. I gave out 5 or 6 coins, something like that. And when they came back, First Sergeant Cady, who was the first sergeant of this company, called me and said he wanted to do it. Well, they'd spent 6 months in the Sinai, a very boring place. Not now, but then it was boring. And they must have spent 6 months doing sit-ups, push-ups, and I ran out of coins. I sent my aide back to the headquarters. We still didn't have enough coins to give them all out. They just whipped me.
That's a pretty awesome story, sir.
Yeah.
I'm relatively new to the 82nd, and I've been here for about 2 months. And as I'm studying the division's history over the past 100 years, since the mid-1970s, there's been a real tension between keeping leaders in the division with airborne experience for a very long time and bringing in new people to lead who have never served in the 82nd. When you look at the battalion commanders within the division today, we maintain a pretty good mix, but we still lean heavily on leaders with experience in the division. Where do you stand on this?
I have mixed feelings on it. Frankly, at battalion level, I think it'll work. If the new battalion commander may not have airborne experience, but he's got a good solid grounding as a platoon leader, company commander, battalion staff, and so forth, I think it'd work at battalion level. Above that, at the brigade level, you're getting to a point where you really have to think much farther ahead, and you have to have a solid foundation. So at brigade and division, I think it's very important they've had airborne experience. At battalion, I don't think it's as important, and I've seen it work both ways.
Great. Outstanding. Thanks for sharing, sir. I appreciate your time.
Okay.
That's all I've got.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's Wednesday, May 24th, day 3 of All-American Week 100. Today, we have the Division Memorial. That's the big event for today. The Memorial is certainly the most somber thing we do. It's perhaps the most important event during All-American Week. So as we prepare for the Division Memorial, one thing that is weighing on us with a terrorist attack at a stadium, innocents killed at a concert, and evil exists in the world just as it did 100 years ago. Evil must be defeated. There's no guarantee on freedom. There's no hedge on democracy. It has to be fought for, and evil has to be defeated. So that certainly is something to consider, something we're considering here as we prepare for the Division Memorial. Just as evil must be defeated 100 years ago, it must be defeated today. With that, we will get ready for the Division Memorial.
Good afternoon and welcome. Gold Star families, families of paratroopers killed in training, distinguished guests, all Americans. On behalf of the entire 82nd Airborne Division, thank you all for attending today. Thank you all for everything you do to honor our fallen warriors. You honor us today with your presence. It was President Abraham Lincoln that stated that a nation that does not honor its heroes will not long endure. Honoring our heroes is exactly what we are here to do today. Those of us gathered here today and throughout this week share a terrible secret. We know the contributions of this division over the past 100 years come at an awful price. We know that freedom, democracy, and the defeat of evil is paid for in blood. Thinking about that shared secret and about the names honored on these stones gives perspective. I am often reminded that in today's American society, they place the wrong people on a pedestal. You see, society's heroes are too often someone who can catch a football for $24 million or someone who can sing a song better than the next. This past year, our nation honored the deaths of actors whose adult lives were spent committed to pretending to be someone else in a fictional script. This past year, we watched news anchors mourn pop singers who died of drug overdoses. Well, those of us gathered here today and throughout this week share that terrible secret that we know the contributions of this division to freedom, democracy, and the defeat of evil over the past 100 years have come in the price of blood. We know who the real heroes are. One need only look at the lives eulogized in this sacred place to find them. As you read the names and stories behind them, you find that for 100 years, all Americans have served with neither fanfare or fame, not for fortune or recognition. They fought for a calling. They fought for the All-American beside them and their friends and family back home. Captain Jewett Williams was 31 years old with a wife and a 5-month-old daughter when he became the first All-American killed in combat. Jewett was a clergyman and a family man who volunteered to fight the Central Powers. He was felled by a German rifle in a remote French village on June 9, 1918. First Lieutenant Weston Lee was 25 years old when he became the last All-American casualty in combat. Weston was brought down by an IED in Iraq late last month. Like Jewett and all the rest, this was one hell of a loss. Weston was raised in a small town in Georgia that most have never heard of. There are far more people in one of these tents than his entire hometown. He wanted to be a soldier since the 9th grade. And when notified of his death, his parents said they were thankful that at least Weston died doing something that he loved. Weston's death is a stark reminder that, as it is for the past century, evil still exists in the world. Storm clouds of danger still gather outside our borders, and in our 100th year, the world needs an 82nd Airborne Division. I pray that this division will go the next 100 years without ever having to add another name to this field. I pray for 100 years of calm winds of peace and soft landings of tranquility. But we who share that terrible secret know better. We know that the American ideal of freedom and safety is paid for by the sacrifice of a few. We must place paratroopers in dangerous situations, as we have for the last 100 years. In 1917, a group of blacksmiths, farmers, and tradesmen came together to form a new unit. They were an experiment, a vision of a national army organized to fight a world war, a group of Americans from all over the country forming to fight as a cohesive unit. This had never been done before. They represented the values of all Americans. They knew that many of them would never return from France in World War I. 1,298 of them never did. Jewett Williams was among them. So in between Jewett and Weston, there have been 5,019 All-Americans killed in combat. There have also been 236 killed in training. Those numbers are important, but numbers have their limits. They hide the human dimension of those losses. That's more than 5,000 families forever changed. Children who said goodbye to their mothers at Green Ramp and never saw them again. Fathers who missed the birth of a child and then missed the rest of their child's life. Parents who folded American flags in their living rooms. Wives who received that terrible knock on the door, and husbands who received the call they feared the most. Some of them died crossing the Wall River, others while seizing the island of Sicily. Some did not survive D-Day. Others were killed in a Vietnamese village. Some paid that final price in Panama's Trios Airport. Others in the mountains of Afghanistan and the fields of Iraq. Others still while securing the Dominican Republic's Duarte Bridge. You didn't hear eulogies of them on the national news. You didn't see public figures mourn them upon their death. But you do see their names here, and that means something. And as long as we share that secret, this will always mean something. And we know that all Americans remain in harm's way. Today in Mosul, Iraq, 100 years after that initial gathering, an all-American paratrooper is checking the functions of his weapon as he lightly oils it before heading out on a combat patrol. In Kabul, Afghanistan, a platoon leader is checking routes and checking equipment. As their forebears did a century ago, they'll walk out into the dark and unknown of the night with the weight of the world on their shoulders. The country may honor the millionaires, the movie stars, and the baseball players. Let us, those who've worn the AA patch, forever honor the men and women memorialized in these stones. Through that memory, may they live on for the next 100 years. Airborne all the way.
Ma'am, Specialist Michael Rodriguez, you're honoring his memory. What are your thoughts? What are your emotions immediately after the ceremony?
I'm very proud of him. I'm proud of the 82nd, proud that he was part of the 82nd, but I miss him so much. And proud and sad at the same time.
Well, it was a great ceremony, and we appreciate you coming out here and honoring his memory. Anything we can do to honor his memory for the 82nd Airborne and all our fallen.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks, ma'am. Thanks for everything. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, man. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
So your brother, Sergeant Warren Stinger, was added to the Combat Training Memorial.
Okay, well, I appreciate it, but I'm like...
So this is the first time he was honored. What are your thoughts after that ceremony, sir?
We're touched. We're very moved.
Great.
It's been a long time coming. He was the kind of person that went all out for everything, believed in that airborne all the way, and when he put his mind to something, he dedicated himself to something, and that's what he thought of his unit and his men. And he loved doing what he did.
Well, we just thank you for coming and honoring that memory, sir. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you for having me and my family here today.
Anything we can do. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
So we caught up with Tyler Fox. Tyler Fox is a 20-year-old historian. He became interested in the division's history as a teenager, actually at age 15, and he began researching the division's history. He began traveling the United States, interviewing World War II paratroopers, and then outside of the United States, traveling Europe, interviewing people about the division's history in World War II. In last year, he wrote a book called Our Salvation, and he's an honorary member of the 504th Parachute Infantry Regiment. He came here for All-American Week, and we caught up with him and talked to him.
I'm Staff Sergeant Matt Britton, and I'm joined by Tyler Fox, author of Our Salvation. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So first off, I'd like to ask, at such a young age, how did you become invested and interested in the 82nd Airborne Division?
Yeah, so I began researching the 504th Parachute Infantry Regiment when I was 15 years old. I've always been interested in the military pretty much my whole life, and there's a library down the street from where I lived, and so I go to the library every once in a while, and I always looked at the military history books and picked out a book about the 504th, and read that, and I thought, Jesus, these guys were freaking nuts. I was like, I got to meet one of these guys. So I ended up getting in touch with one of the veterans. I found he had an email address, and we'd email all the time, and then he ended up getting me in touch with a couple other guys that he served with during the war. His name was Fred Baldino, and like I said, I got in touch with him when I was 15, and a year after that, we emailed pretty much every day, and a lot of times he would tell me about what happened at the village of Altavilla, which is what my book is about, when the regiment jumped into Salerno along with the 505th the next night. And, you know, I never was big into math when I was in school, and
I don't think anyone was.
Yeah. And so he said something. He sent me an email, which I still have. One time I was kind of complaining about my math homework or whatever, and he's like, just pretend like you're attacking Hill 424 and you shall strike and hold. And I think that was kind of displayed the significance, and you never really heard about what happened there too much, you know, in normal conversation in terms of in the 82nd Airborne and the history. You just don't hear that mentioned too much, what happened there. And when I went out and visited him, we went to this restaurant, and it was high up on top of this big hill. And we were talking about the battle there, and he was so proud of what the regiment accomplished there. But anyway, he would point out, like, the hill kind of structure was fairly similar, and he'd point out, yeah, we went up like this on this hill, and then that's where, you know, this happened. And just hearing him talk about that was one of the big reasons I did that, because it was really important to him. Okay. And the story of what happened there was important, and he was incredibly proud about what the regiment, what his battalion had accomplished there. And the 82nd, I think it's a good reflection on what the entire division did as a whole.
It's day 4 of All-American Week 100, Thursday, May 25th. There are thousands of people out here in Sicily Drop Zone. It's 9 in the morning. There are buses. There are hundreds more coming in. People are streaming in. We've got the band here. The chorus is playing. And we're getting ready we're about 2 hours away from the demonstration, the division review, the airborne review. And it's a full demonstration of all the weapon systems in our arsenal. We've got close air support, artillery, integration of fires between the air and the ground, and it's going to be an incredible display. This really takes it full circle. The rest of this week, the past 72, 96 hours are really about the last 100 years. And the airborne review for today, the way we're doing it, is about the next 100 years. How the 82nd Airborne Division is postured today, how it's preparing for future conflicts, and that's really what we're looking forward to. So we're a few hours away. People are excited. There's a lot of kids out here, a lot of alumni and former paratroopers, and should be a great event. And when did you serve in the 82nd, sir?
I was Lieutenant Colonel, retired, Ned Baxter. I served a couple of tours, but my favorite tour was during 88 through 91, that we jumped into Panama, and also the first Desert Storm.
What does it mean to you to be back here for All-American Week 100, celebrating the century of the division? What are your feelings? What does it mean for you?
It's an absolutely incredible feeling. This is the first time I've been back since I left in about '91, and let me tell you what a rich, amazing legacy the 82nd Airborne Division has. I was fortunate enough to serve with a group of men in wartime and peacetime, and I've never been around finer officers, finer men and women in my life than what I served with the 82nd Airborne Division.
When you're looking around at the paratroopers you see here today, you know, I just see like these really physically fit, disciplined paratroopers. What do you think that tells you about the next 100 years?
I think it tells me that our future's secure as long as there's an 82nd Airborne Division. There'll always be that legacy, that just proud tradition that goes all the way back to World War I, 100 years now, and it is just one of adapt and overcome. So it's one of achieving victory no matter what the obstacles, what's in front of you.
Thanks, sir. That's great, and we hope for a great show. We just hope we can jump.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good to meet you.
Good, nice to meet you. Thank you. All right, so Sergeant Boyle, you are what, the NCOIC for the chorus?
Yes, sir.
So the chorus is an important part of All-American Week 100, and what's it like for you to sort of represent this legacy and this tradition? Or really, you represent the culture.
I mean, it's really kind of neat, especially, you know, with the culture of the Airborne and All-American Week being such a special part of what it means to be a paratrooper. You get to see everybody from all walks of life come back and kind of, you know, reconnect with the division and see what the division's been up to. And our part of that is, you know, kind of musically continuing to be the ambassadors of the division and tell the story of the paratrooper and, you know, the 82nd Airborne Division in the Army to the civilians that come to post, and also, you know, those old paratroopers that come back and try to reconnect.
Yeah.
Their battalion commander and brigade commander were still on the aircraft. We were able to land quick and get down and out here. All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, paratroopers, distinguished guests, our Gold Star families. You are the heartblood of this organization. This week has been an opportunity for us to pay homage to our inherited legacy. Over the past 100 years, there have been so many moments that have helped define who we are as America's Guard of Honor. But as you know, you can never really tell in the moment that you are the start of something that will change the world. 100 years ago, a group of 30,000 laborers, farmers, and blacksmiths assembled in the Georgia heat. Those men could have never known that they would have happened over the next 100 years. 26 years later, a group of all-American visionaries had a dream of a force of soldiers paratrooping from the sky to defeat evil. I wonder if those airborne paratroopers and pioneers ever saw this day. There have been many men, many women, many times, many places since that the 82nd has served. It's been a hell of a century for America's Guard of Honor. When I reflect back in our history, I'm reminded of the words of a former All-American 6. In 1942, then General Ridgway reconstituted this division. He wanted to recall the All-American World War I pride. He said, "It is vitally important to plant in each man's mind that valor endures from generation to generation, that the great deeds of their fathers had performed in France could be repeated by the sons of today." Those words set the foundation for today. Valor endures from the Argonne Force to Normandy, to Duarte Bridge in Santo Domingo, to Rios International Airport in Panama. Valor endures in the villages of the Mekong Delta, to the streets of Mosul, to the mountains of Afghanistan, and many places in between. Valor endures this day with the Global Response Force, with the Falcon Brigade in Mosul, putting it to ISIS in Iraq and Syria, with 373 Cav right now in Kabul, Afghanistan, and soon most of the Devil Brigade going to Afghanistan and Kosovo. When we reflect on our history, time seems to collapse in on itself. 100 years in the blink of an eye, from doughboys to paratroopers in an instant. When you think about all that has changed in the United States since its birth, it is remarkable to think that the AA patch still endures. This division stands against the erosion of time's tides. Over the past 100 years, we've had a cultural revolution, a series of social revolutions, a technological revolution, the dawn of social media, riots, integration, Pearl Harbor, 9/11, the Red Scare, depression, recession, and natural disasters. All of these things have come and gone. Yet, the 82nd Airborne remains, as it always has, a symbol of strength and freedom in a dangerous and uncertain world. The 82nd Airborne Division is an American institution, and so shall it be for the next 100 years. All Americans, our legacy continues. We now write the next chapter in history. In 100 years, another group of paratroopers will meet in these stands to celebrate. We'll all be memories then, names on walls, pictures in hallways, dates and faces and stories that blend in with the mosaic of the All-American legacy. The history that we have set down here this week will by then encompass all of us. Our grandchildren will gather here at that bicentennial. They'll come from all over the country to tell our stories. Stories about friendship, stories about Sicily drop zone, stories about Iraq and Afghanistan, stories about us. They'll wear symbols of this division, they'll carry a part of us, and when they meet, they will shake hands, embrace, and say, Airborne, all the way.
So it's over. It's all over. All-American Week 100 is culminated. It's 10 o'clock at night on Thursday, May 25th. It was an exhausting week, but it was a great week. The weather absolutely worked against us all week with pouring rain for the first part, and then today, high winds caused cancellation of the airborne operation. We all wish we could have jumped and demonstrated that capability, that airborne capability, but our spirits are high nonetheless because many people were watching us and following us throughout the week on social media, and we represented our legacy and our paratroopers the right way. So there were thousands of veterans from the division out there today, and at the end of the division review, about 5,000 current paratroopers marched across Sicily drop zone with all of our flags and guidons. They marched in from out of the smoke from the other side of the drop zone. It was a really dramatic moment. And right after that, we paid homage to our alumni from every campaign with an All-American Legends March. This was a march with paratroopers from every campaign from World War II on. And, those paratroopers were really proud to represent the division and their battle buddies in that march. We also conducted a full demonstration of our capability. We did show our lethality in all of our weapon systems. We had an air assault, rocket artillery, a platoon assault, and many other elements and parts and pieces. So, what we showed today is that we don't just lean on our great history, we're building on it. So, we pay homage to our history, but we're also making our own history. We've demonstrated excellence all week. We demonstrated our competitive spirit and the full capability of the 82nd Airborne Division all week, and then out there in Sicily drop zone today, we demonstrated our past, represented by the All-American alumni, and our future, represented by the paratroopers who build on that legacy every day. We saw the last 100 years and the next 100 years really in one moment. That moment was All-American Week 100. Thanks for listening.